Using UDF on a USB flash drive. After failing to copy a file bigger than 4 grams to my 8 grams USB flash drive, I formatted it as X3. While this is working fine for me so far, it will cause problems if I want to use it to copy files to someone which does not use Linux. I am thinking of formatting it as UDF instead, which I hope would allow it to be read, and possibly even written, on the 3 most popular operating systems, Windows, macOS, and Linux, without having to install any extra drivers. However, from what I found on the web already, there seem to be several small gotchas related to which parameters are used to create the file system, which can reduce the compatibility, but most of the pages I found are about optical media, not USB flash drives. I would like to know. Which utility should I use to create the file system? So far I have found MQDF and GenezoImage, and MQDF seems the best option. Which parameters should I use with the chosen utility for maximum compatibility? How compatible with the most common versions of these 3 operating systems UDF actually is? Is using UDF actually the best idea? Is there another file system which would have better compatibility, with no problematic restrictions like the FAT32 4 grams file size limit, and without having to install special drivers in every single computer which touches it?
First, I zeroed completely the drive before creating the UDF file system with. This is to avoid any leftover superblocks or other metadata which could confuse the operating system's file system type detection. At least zeroing the first sector should be needed to obliterate the partition table. The first few sectors are not used by UDF, and a leftover partition table could really confuse things. You could also use the count equals 1 switch on the dd command in order to more quickly zero just the first 512 bytes of the drive, where the MBR usually is located within, though this was not tested. To create the file system, the command I used was MQDF command will become available on Debian-based Linux distros, such as Ubuntu, after installing usbflashdrive package. The default block size from MQDF is 2048, which is wrong for a USB flash drive, which uses 512 byte sectors. Since the block size is used to find the file system metadata, using a wrong block size can make it not be recognized as a UDF file system, since the anchor will not be where the file system driver is expecting. Note that the MQDF man page is wrong. 512 is a valid value for the block size, and the code explicitly accepts it. I also use the whole drive instead of a partition. This should be more compatible. The result of my testing so far: Linux with the most recent kernel, the 2nd of June 2031, from Ubuntu 9.10 works. Linux with an older kernel needs the BS equals 512 option to mount because it incorrectly used 2048 instead of the device sector size, fixed in commit 1197 E4D. Windows Vista works. A brand new Mac works. Windows XP can read fine, but gives access denied when trying to write. Also seems to think the disk is full. While I have not so far tried to create a file larger than 4 grams in it, I see no reason why it would not work. Given that it worked perfectly on all recent operating systems, only having to mount manually on Linux, which will not be needed anymore as soon as Ubuntu 9.10 and Fedora 12 are out, and worked read-only in Windows XP. which was a surprise to me. I was expecting it to not recognize the file system at all. Using UDF instead of FAT32 or NTFS in big USB flash drive seems a good idea.
Cesar did a great job getting to the crux of the issue. One thing that can't be underscored enough is how important it is to use the proper block size when formatting UDF. Inspired by Cesar's post, and my other research/testing, I wrote a script to automate the process of formatting in UDF using the properly detected sector size. See Format UDF on GitHub. Notable features: format to block drive, hard drive or flash drive, in universal disk format, UDF. UDF revision 2.01 used for maximal compatibility. First 4096 sectors are zeroed out to erase any existing MBR, necessary for proper UDF detection. Resulting file system can be read/written across multiple operating system families, Windows, OS X, and Linux. Runs on any OS having a bash environment. Because of the last point, the script I wrote cannot be used on Windows. However, the script will run on OS X and Linux. After doing so, Windows should be able to magically detect the newly formatted UDF drive. To directly answer the questions posted, Format UDF will choose the appropriate tool for formatting based on operating system and environment. Automatically detect and populate all parameters necessary for formatting. Maximize OS compatibility, see GitHub page for compatibility chart. Yield the maximum feature set, and minimal limitations, that the asker is looking for.
I seem to recall having done that. The problem I found is that the Linux version I had mounted it read only, as the driver had not been built for RW. It did work in Windows, and I think Mac. Yeah, a good solution is hard to find. For a while I had an external drive with a FAT32 partition that had drivers for Win and Mac, a Mac partition, and a big X3 partition. It worked, but it meant installing drivers. Neat trick was it was also bootable on a Mac, FW and AMP, USB. You have to leave space and take some notes, then you can add partitions via the command line and a Mac partition table as well. The world needs a free, usable by everything, file system. ZFS would be a nice choice. Smile.
Peter Wuil wrote a tool to partition and format a disk to make a UDF layout that will be compatible with both Windows and GT:\Vista, read-only for XP, macOS X 10.5, Linux 2.6.30+. Explanation, via Internet Archive. The Perl script that uses mqdf from udftools. Alternatively, the bash script by Jolchison. Sharing a hard/flash drive across Windows, OS X, and Linux with UDF.